gives me the ability to appreciate business. My empathy to this subject lies in the fact that I have worked as a consultant and a manager across different global firms for different and for different global clients of different industries, be it banking. I have thorough experience in working for banking clients, for governments, for even utility sectors like water and other utilities. So with that perception, I will bring together for you and for the students of your college a bit of perspective in this session. Thank you.
Thank
So,
you, sir.
as I said, I'm not an expert. So let's let this not be a session where I give you my perspective and you just take it away. Let's discover this together. Let's make it interactive session
Sure,
where
sir.
all of you will participate. So, and this topic is such, I think it's very close to all of our hearts because we all of us have been affected by this pandemic over the last couple of years. Hardly there is a family or an individual who has not seen or been impacted by it in different ways or have not heard about the stories. It's probably the crisis of our times. So every perception is welcome, and please share your thought. Now, as I said, this is an interactive session, so let's start with a question.
Yes, sir.
How many of you, I'm pretty sure some of you are doing online classes, Yogesh, are there online classes?
Right,
They're
sir.
online, right? Yeah. Okay. How many of you like to do online classes or for teachers or staff? How many of you like work from home?
No, sir. Many of us we wanted to work in a college only, sir, in the classrooms.
Is it all the time or is it part of the time?
All the time, sir.
All the time?
All the time, sir. It's our
Right.
opinion, sir. All the faculty members they feel the same.
Okay. Okay. I hope you're. This is not because if people are seeing you and you're speaking for yourself. Um, Look, there was a global survey back in March this year, and it said how many of you would like to go back to office. And people did want to go back to office or go back to the colleges because the human interaction, the sense of talking just physically in front of another person cannot be taken away. I mean, that adds a particular value. However, people wanted to continue working from home at least once or twice a week. Okay, so that's the general pulse because it saves on many. It saves on conveyance time. It saves on the time that you don't get to eat the stuff that you want to eat. Let's say a healthy stuff, you go for munching here and there. So there's a lot of time that gets whiled away, whereas here it is very much focused. Of course, that means you need a proper setup and get dedicated. Now, the reason I'm asking that is because I want to open this session with by opening your perspective on what a chain impact is on. Okay, so let's say here in Australia, or even my friends, let's say in US and other places, even in India, they belong to the IT sector and they absolutely love working from home because it makes them so much impactful. Let's say if you are in a city like Bangalore, you travel for 3 to 4 hours, okay, up and down every day. Okay, at least 2 hours if you're living close by, probably. Okay, every day. So save on that time, put it back on work. Okay, you get the privilege of working when you want. Okay, you don't have to haste up and cook your lunch, and you don't end up tiring yourself. So there's much more time that is saved that you distribute to either your work or your personal life or both, or sometimes your me time, right? So people love it. But when you see what's the overall impact of it, just try to appreciate. I go to work. First, whom do I pay? I pay the cabbie, the cab driver. I pay the taxi, or I pay the train. So all these industries and the people employed by these industries earn from me going to work. Second, I land there, I have a coffee at Starbucks or whatever is the barista, etc. around. Okay, they earn from me. When I have a lunch around there, it's not just me, everybody who works. If there's a big cafeteria in the canteen, all those vendors they come in, they earn. The people who maintain the premise, the sweepers, the people who load water into the filters and in the fridges, the soft drinks, etc., they are there to serve a particular purpose. They all earn because all of us go to office. Okay. Now, when we don't go to office, you shut down that particular wheel. What happens? There is the expenditure on all these aspects that stops. People start finding that we don't need such a big premise. Here, some of the leading banks have openly declared that look, work is something that you do, not what you go to, right? And what that means is we don't need you to come back. Just be there. Just we meet once in a month to celebrate, to do a team catch up, right? But what that means, they are going to sell off those premises. Those premises means real estate. So the people who had built those buildings will now not be earning their rent. The infrastructure, data centers that are deployed over there will not be required. They will be sold off. The internet, the electricity, all those service providers will not earn any more when you not go to office. So you are shutting off that entire wheel. Okay. And now imagine how that backbites you. So you may think that, yeah, that's fine. Why do I care? I am fine. I am maybe an IT professional, or in this case, I'm like in your cases, I'm a student. I don't care. I mean, staff can work from home. We can work, study from home. We are working all good. But just imagine how it's happening. And I will give you the case of an IT sector. We develop solutions. Whom do we have? Whom do we develop solutions for? Let's say many clients, but out of them a prominent one is a bank, right? So we have developed solutions for bank. What kind of solution? A typical solution is a loan application solution. All of you must appreciate, right? You would be going to a bank to apply for a loan. Similarly, you have business loans. Okay, I'm just taking one scenario. Okay, there are businesses who would go to HDFC Bank portal, probably ICICI Bank portal, and apply for it. These ones are can somebody force the mute on everyone? Yeah, thank you. So these are developed by IT people. Okay, so let's say I am developing that for a bank so that it caters to small businesses so that they can apply for loan, they can pay their loan, their life becomes easy. What happens? The bank therefore pays my company, which is Accenture in this case, and Accenture pays me. All good, we are good. But now I stopped going to office. Gradually, what happens? I took the example of this person who had a cafeteria or a restaurant nearby where all of us used to go and have our food, have our lunch, have our coffee. He starts earning less. He doesn't get as many customers. He shuts down his business. Now, this was the person who was repaying the bank his loan amount, right, with interest, and bank was earning profit out of it. Out of the profit, a part of it was spent into IT to develop a software that makes life easy. Now the bank says, well, I am losing money. There are loans which are becoming bad debt for us. There are loans which are not getting recovered. So I need to save money. I need to stop my expense. So one of the things I say, IT is a luxury. I don't want it. I shut down half of my projects. And people have done that. Banks have done that. They have prioritized, kept the most critical elements, critical projects, and shut down the remaining. What is the effect? The effect is, let's say in this case, my company would be told, hey, you are expecting a $1 million over the next 1 year. Now you're not going to get it. We have just shut it down. What my company does, comes back and finds out, how can I keep this workforce which I had deployed to work on this project? So they lay off half of that workforce. So the same people like me who are happy to work from home, and we shut down that entire cycle of economy, the entire cycle has bit us on our back. So together we prosper, otherwise all of us suffer. I hope that makes sense. I'm going to get feedback from time to time, expecting that people are listening and people are participating. Does that make sense as a starting statement, that how closely knit an economy is, even within a nation? Okay, with that small example, anyone wants to voice out and say something?
Anyone?
Yogesh, it looks
Yes, sir.
you are the most attentive one. All right. I hope people are listening. Okay.
Yes, sir. Sure.
Um, right. Now, so what has happened? Um, the world GDP, and that's a formal number that I've got over net. Net, I think it is part of Harvard Business School reference. So it says the world GDP will be 7%, 7.5% lower than what it would have been if there was no pandemic, if COVID didn't strike. That's a lot of shrink in GDP, or a lot of opportunity lost. Okay. Now, economy, if we are talking about commerce and economy, remember, the simplest definition, if as far as my understanding goes, is it is healthy only if money passes through um, every aspect of it, every component of that economy. Okay, just imagine like your blood flows through your body. The more parts the blood passes through, the more organs the blood passes through and delivers the oxygen to, the healthier those parts are, right? And the healthier your overall body is. Similarly, with economy, a good economy will touch all people, or rather, people of all strata. Okay, the more number of people you touch, the more healthy is the economy. That's the reason often we all complain about the distribution of wealth, and we keep saying, look, yes, the country may be prospering, but the rich is becoming wealthier and the poor is becoming destitute. Okay, so that's not a good mark of an economy. And therefore, when we shut off that engine by doing activities or staying home, that impacts the overall economy and bites us back. That does not mean that go against the government regulation and go out and do it, but this is what is happening and why it's happening. We have no choice but to remain at home, and but when we remain at home, this is what happens. Okay, so that's the introduction that I wanted you guys to appreciate. Now, again, coming back to the part, the world economy will be 7.5% lower. Now, I hope all of you as students of commerce understand what's GDP. We said world economy means world GDP. GDP is the single biggest, most widely accepted indicator of economy. Now, what is GDP? Let's do a quick touch on that. And probably you have all covered it in your classes of economics. But as far as my memory goes of, when I studied economics, it comprised of four pillars. One, the primary one, consumption. Okay. So the more you consume, and it's simple. When I say consume, that means I buy something. When I buy something, I give money to someone else. Again, it's exchange of money. So consumption is one of the pillars of economy. Second is corporate investment. How much corporates pour in money. Okay. Uh, the third is government spending. How much government is investing into projects. Okay. And the fourth is the net exports, which means how much are you able to send out of your country minus how much are you getting in your country. So exports minus imports. Remember, these concepts are very important when you are actually talking about the grammars of economics. Now, if there are certain aspects you should also know, because there's a lot of brouhaha. These are the age of social network. People sometimes cry out economy is draining down, and some people would say that GDP is showing good growth. So as students of commerce, you should know what are the limitations of GDP. GDP still continues to be the single biggest indicator, but what are the fallacies, or what are the lacunas of of understanding an economy just by GDP. So, for example, if you're if you are short circuiting a supply chain. So, for example, these days online services are there. Imagine when in olden days, my father or my grandfather would used to go to plan a trip. They would go and visit a travel agent. Okay, so when he gives the money to a travel agent, and the travel agent gives it to somebody else, and then after 4 exchanges, it actually gets booked. That contributes to economy. Everywhere there's a tax deduction, there's a bit of value exchange, and that contributes to economy. But nowadays you have a yatra, one shot, or whatever, make my trip, one shot, your stuff is booked. Is it efficient? Yes. Does it contribute to GDP? No, because the number of exchanges is less. Okay. Overall efficiency versus number of hands exchange, we have to make a call. But remember, these are the things when automation kicks in, a number of places we short circuit, which is good in a way, but it hits the economy also, which is fine. But then we have to understand the economic numbers. Next, repeated spending. Okay, so think about, often we would be complaining about governments, right? Spending on a road. They have just constructed a road that broke down in the next rain. Okay, and then they rebuilt it and it broke down in the next rain. So this repeated spending, do we like it? We don't like it because we think it's not good. Build it once, it should go on for 5 years or 10 years, right? That's what it should be. But what would GDP say? GDP would say, nah, keep spending. The more number of times you spend, the more GDP grows. So again, yeah. And the third biggest lacuna is GDP would say consumption is more. Okay, the more you pump in money into the economy, the more people buy, be it real estate, be it electronics, whatever it is good. Sometimes it's not. Don't forget the 2006 to 2008 subprime crisis. Okay, so what happened? If you remember, people were in US, they were buying homes, they were subletting those homes, mortgaging it twice, thrice, and then what would happen is the bank would have lent much more than the actual value of the home. And finally, what happened is the banks started making losses when the people said, well, I can't pay you back, right? And banks started shutting down. It impacted the overall global economy. But the move of pumping in money, unlimited money, that's good as per GDP. So GDP has its own limitations. So I just want to take a detour so that you guys appreciate that all is not well when we just consider GDP as the single biggest indicator.
Udayan sir, can't hear you. Your mic on. Yes, I try, sir. Sir, now try. Oh.
Yeah.
No, sir.
So Yogesh, where did you lose me? How long was I speaking without being heard?
No. Just few seconds, sir. Few seconds.
Okay, that's good. All right. So I hope that all made sense so far. So we went from understanding the cycle that bites us back when we don't contribute to the economy, when we clog the cogs of economy, to the fact that what is GDP and how much global GDP has been impacted. Now, let's understand where it has impacted, okay, globally. And we would all say that, look, the countries that have been most impacted are the ones where the industries have been most impacted. So let's list down the industries, and I'll quote some from my memory. You guys feel free to come in with more. Before we do that, Yogesh, how long is the segment? Just tell me how long. I'm just going to watch the time.
You can have got another 40 minutes, sir.
Another 45 minutes. Okay.
40,
I don't
40.
have content that long. Okay. 30 sounds good. Perfect. Okay.
Right, sir.
So let's list down a few things. Now, what has got hit. So let's take example of the obvious one would be, let's say, tourism. Okay, nobody is going into a hotel anymore. I mean, hardly. There's occupancy rates are really low. Flights are not flying much. So imagine a country like, let's say, Thailand, that thrives on tourism, massively impacted. Okay, that's obvious. If your mainstay, or your main source of income gets impacted, you will become you will be hardest hit. Now, therefore, one of the lessons of this crisis is to diversify, to know that we should not be relying on one source of income or less number of sources of income. Diversification. I'll give you another example. Australia. We have a number of big retailers, and all these retailers source their not raw materials, let's say parts, or sometimes, I'll give you an example. Tissue rolls, right? And it's obviously, in these countries they use a lot of tissues. These tissues get packaged with a certain plastic. Okay, that plastic wrapping comes from China. Okay, so suddenly in COVID, suddenly we ran out of tissue papers, and we're like, what the hell? Okay, don't we produce? We produce, but the country was not in a position to respond so soon for the lack of packaging items. We can't just throw in tissue papers just like that. Sorry, that was Google. Yeah. So what happened, we realized, is for a number of things. I mean, starting from that wrapper of tissue paper to the basic. I mean, we would be producing clothes or getting it from India or Bangladesh, but the zip in the cloth or the button in the clothes comes from China. Okay, and when China was hardest hit during the Wuhan crisis, we started feeling the heat. So the government is realizing now that, look, should not everything should not be sourced from one destination. If that's hit, we will have a problem. Okay. Um, Shortly following that, in Australia, there was a little bit of a tiff between the two governments as well, the Australian and the Chinese government, because of which there were certain bans, certain trade tariffs increase, etc., and we suffered. So again, distribute or distribute your risk. That's very important. Okay, so that's one of the things to talk about. The next thing is, let's see other industries and how things have changed there. So we just talked about flights, right? Tourism impacted, flights impacted, of course. um, you know where flights really earn their money from? It's not the daily you and me traveling to hometown and back, or to a destination holiday and back. The profit that they make out of that is very marginal. The real profit that they make is from the business class tickets, from the A class tickets, and all those premium tickets. There, the value that they give versus the money that they charge is much, much, much more. Okay, so that's where they earn. Now, after this COVID crisis, business travel came to a standstill. I, for example, I work for a particular technology which has a big global summit every year in US. I'm supposed to go there every year, okay, once. That summit, and people saw value in spending, sending executives over there once in a year. That summit has stopped because of obvious reasons, and it didn't really stop. It stopped in its physical form. It happens in its virtual form using Zoom and other things. Okay, it happens well, but obviously we don't enjoy it as much as we would be enjoying going to a Las Vegas, right? But what has happened, all this has culminated, I mean, all these ways of working, changing, working from home, that has culminated in the fact that people are not traveling as much for business as they would, right? So flight industry has got affected, and we have lost a number of flying companies. For example, airlines companies, Virgin Airlines, they closed down in Australia. They could not just sustain. Okay, people lost jobs. But then think, during this pandemic, what was the thing that came up? Online delivery. Okay. And all of us, I mean, I was not a big fan of online. Okay. I would like to go touch and feel and see the stuff in front of me. But I resorted to uh, Amazon, eBay, and all these shipments come via air. So if you see, the entire industry is now changing. Airlines is still airlines, but from passenger focus, it is changing into more of cargos and other things. I'm not saying they earn equally, no. Maybe they will at a particular point of time, but the focus is changing. Your target segments are changing. Okay. So therefore, that transformation is happening. Next, um, urban service sector. Okay, what is the urban service center? All these baristas and big foreign all these chains that you have around your office, Pizza Huts and Domino's and things like that. They have got massively impacted because they don't get those walk-ins or these things, but they are getting, on the other hand, delivery service. Okay, delivery service. So the rise of things like DoorDash and Uber Eats, they have to a large extent neutralized, or I would say negated the impact of COVID on these retailers. So they work more behind the closed doors than entertaining people in eat-ins. Therefore, the eat-in, I'll give you an example. Some of these restaurants where what we had here, they've actually closed down their eat-in space, and they say, no, we earn good by reducing our space, selling that off, and making a smaller shop and just sending deliveries. Now, sending deliveries, we may wonder, well, it's possible when you're talking about a pizza, but what about a restaurant experience? Now, you'll be amazed. All of you, I hope, have heard about a Michelin star. What's a Michelin star? It's a global standard. It's sort of a global premium standard of recognizing a restaurant. It's actually started with a French standard. It's a max of 3 stars can be given. You cannot have 5 star. It's maximum of 3 stars. So people crave for that. If you are a Michelin 1 star, that's amazing. Michelin 2 and Michelin 3, very few Michelin 3 star chefs or restaurants are there. Now in US, I saw one of the case studies where a Michelin star, probably they're 1 star, but still it's a Michelin star. They were fine dining. Fine dining means the category of your, I don't know, barbecue nation, or not even that, probably something higher if you have. Now that kind of restaurant would still do home delivery. The entire thing about a fine dining is the art of presentation, where a nicely suited butler would come, flick off the kerchief, and present it with a particular panache, a style. That's what you pay for. Here the style was gone, but they packaged in such a way with premium packaging and stuff, and with a dedicated, it's not Uber Eats and stuff. It's dedicated, very well groomed delivery folks would go and deliver the stuff so that people can just microwave it and have it on the table. So everyone, they have either faded away with by being rigid on their business model, or they have adopted and survived. That's another impact on the economy. Now, let's go to the other part. Lockdown. Okay, we all, I think, or logically also, as I said, if you stay home, um, the wheels of the economy are cocked, so are clogged. They don't move. So lockdown affects economy. Yes and no. As in, it affects to a certain extent. But I'll give you an example here of Denmark and Sweden, both Scandinavian countries next to each other, literally. Okay, so Denmark went for lockdown, Sweden went for no lockdown. They don't care. Okay, or probably they did a little bit at the beginning, a little bit of restriction, but majorly no lockdown. Their economy shrunk by the same percentage, same amount. Okay, so that means it's not just about lockdown, it's about public behavior, how positive you are, okay, when the lockdown is lifted. How confident do you feel? And the government has a big role in doing that, because finally they have a role in ensuring your safety, passing on the right message. Therefore, you have many times you would have heard, even in India or otherwise, governments to say government saying, stay positive, you need to stay positive, because if you are not positive, if you shrink back, if you close your doors, everything is going to suffer. So when it's safe, go out. Otherwise, obviously, listen to the rules. Another anecdote now. Travel industry. We just talked about. Okay, somebody raise their hand. No. Um, Travel industry. We say travel industry suffered, right? But now think about this. Work from home has just found acceptance. Imagine work from home was happening like 1 day a week was good. I mean, companies giving us 1 day work from home were considered good employers, but work from home found wide acceptance during COVID. The interface of Zoom till 20 end of 2019, Zoom's revenue was of the order of $10 million. That's it. Sorry, I'm so sorry. It's not revenue. It was subscriber, as far as I remember. Let me just look. I think, yeah, it's subscribers. So 10 million subscribers. Zoom was not big. Okay. Now COVID struck after 2019. In a year or less than that, Zoom's subscription increased from 10 million to 300 million. Okay. So suddenly these platforms which were trying to do something different and did not find acceptance have come up. Now, what I'm hinting at is what happens to travel in that case? People who have now been given the privilege that I don't care, you deliver, especially knowledge workers, right? All you need is a laptop with a power connection and an internet connection. That is it. Okay. I don't care where you do, I don't care when you do. I want you to be available for meetings, and I want you to be submitting your output as agreed by the timeline and by the quality. That's the underlying principle of most organizations, knowledge-based organizations. Now, all these guys, there's a sudden now people everybody wants to go out for a vacation, but when things open up, there will be a large chunk of this population who will be heading out, and probably somebody from India will be going to Bali and sipping a coconut by the beach. They will be still doing the same work. So travel industry still has not lost the pulse. This because of transformation in one industry, which is this work from home and ways of working. The other industry, which is travel, which was shrinking, will be benefited by two measures. One, as I said, because cargo in terms of Amazon, eBay, etc., will increase, and two, more knowledge workers and other people will go out just after things become a little safer. So the industry will get transformed. Maybe the business meetings that used to happen will still be online. So there will be a transformation. No. So when I see this up and down of economies and different sectors, it reminds me philosophically, if you see two shores of a sea, if you guys have seen, one builds, the other erodes. It's always the case. It's always the case. Okay. I come from Calcutta, and we always knew when we used to go to the seas of Jagannath Puri. My father used to point and see that and show that there are boulders placed on the seabed because there was erosion. But where was all that sand going? The sand was getting deposited on the other end, which was Bangladesh. So similarly, in this case, one industry erodes, or one way of earning, way of working erodes, and other industry builds up. Similarly, are your skill sets. There is a number of skill sets, like personal service and doing stuff in front of you, like waiters, etc., that demand will go down, but it will be replaced by people like who would be going and delivering, like for example Uber Eats, right? So let's bear that in mind. We are looking at a massive transformation, the transformation of our times, I would say. And I would not call it a transformation, to be exact, because transformation is more of what happens with a certain degree of positivity, with a certain goal in mind. This is disruption, okay? And the disruption, the difference is that disruption is caused by an external agent and you really don't want it. But when it comes, it changes your world. And that is exactly what it has done. So COVID is a disruption. Now, whether you're going to stand as a resistance to that or whether you will accept it and change your ways depends on whether you will survive or you will um, fade away or wither away. Yeah. So, talking about that transformation, um, let's talk about a bit of recovery. Okay. Now here I have a small visual for you guys. Now this was created by BCG. Do you guys know that BCG is Boston Consulting Group? Very famous. Okay. So Boston Consulting Group came up with this model, uh, which says that look, um, the recovery of an economy, okay, is dependent on how hard it is hit. Obvious, sort of obvious, right? And um, how hard it is hit on the supply side by the crisis. Okay, now try to focus. I'm getting a little technical here, but you guys are all commerce students, so what's the fun if you're not talking a little bit of technical? So, um, when a crisis hits the supply side, the impact of that translates into how fast and how effectively the recovery will be. Now, what is the supply side? The supply side comprises of three factors. One, capital. Okay, how much money is there in that business being poured? Second is and who pours capital? You know businessmen. They take money from banks and they put it in. Okay, it's also called credit. Okay, the second thing is labor. So availability of people, right? And the third thing is productivity. Make sense? Capital, labor, productivity. Now, think about it. When one gets hit, everything gets hit. Your entire economy gets hit. But in this case, we have got two factors that have got hit. One, the capital, because there's a financial overall crisis that's happening across the globe. And second, the labor, because we can't go out of home and work. I'm not saying we, as in I'm a knowledge worker, but people who are actually, working for something like a factory and production and stuff, they can't go out. So there are two inputs that are hit. So you are surviving on only one input, which is productivity, right? So I will show you what really our um, Boston Consulting Group has suggested. So let's look at this. Okay. Are you able to see this line? One line. Are you able to
Yes,
see
sir.
that?
Yes, sir.
No?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Okay. So imagine this is how your economy would have progressed. Your output of the economy, which is the product, which defines the gross domestic product, GDP. This is how it would have gone. Okay. But then this happens. This is a V-shaped recovery. This means suddenly there was a cutoff on credit, which means the capital infusion had stopped for a small while and then it started getting in and therefore it's going up. Okay. And you call it capital or labor or whatever it is. But because of that, it immediately recovered. It's called a V-shaped recovery. So it goes out of trajectory and it catches it up, okay, with a quicker ascent. Second case, second case. This is called an L shape, a U-shaped recovery. Why? Because give me a second. A U-shaped recovery because it is creating a U in between. U because the decline happened, but because of a steady decline of the credit was not there, and then you did not put enough inputs in, or enough impetus in, that it could go for a steeper climb and catch up with the graph, right? What it did is it continued with the same rate, but not, this is a steeper climb. This is not a steeper climb, it is the same climb. So it declined the climb and it caught up with the climb, and therefore it catches you. So what happens is the growth rate remains the same, but how much you could have grown is less. Now, for example, India. If India says that, oh, we are back into 7.58 percent growth economy, that does not mean that we would be the same as what we would be if there was not that minus 20 percent or whatever fall, right? Because now we are at the same growth, but we have lost that trajectory. We will not be at this point of time, we will not be at here. Yeah. And the third one, which is the worst one, is called the L-shaped one, which means you decline and then there is definitely not enough impetus. So what happens is it continues at a much slower decline. In fact, there is nothing. The economy is pretty dead. Okay, and I really hope none of the economies in the world goes for that. But what brings this in? What brings this in? Can you see that and that? It is all about how the recovery is happening is dependent on the inputs. So pump in money and things will move. When you pump in money, that does not mean you do one project. The pumping in money means you give, as I said, remember, imagine a body has different organs and your blood. Okay, there is no blood there, so the blood is the only thing that carries oxygen. What will you do? You will pour blood on the body? No, you will try to pass blood through every organ if possible, so that it enlives it. Similarly, you need to give money to your citizens so that they can spend. When they spend, they will not spend. Spending does not mean burning money. Spending money means giving to another person. That's how it starts circulating. So that impetus will enliven or recover your economy. Now let's talk about some of those examples. um, US created, I think US one of the money transfusions into their economy, it was around $2 trillion. Yeah, $2 trillion US dollars. And for UK, it was, or rather, yeah, UK, it was 30 billion pounds. Okay, how did they do it? They reached out and said, here it is the money. So they would directly reach it out to your citizens and say, at the end of the week, you will get this much money, enough so that you can buy your groceries, enough so that you can buy your medicines. Okay, so that they don't resort to crime, they don't die. Okay, they would give instructions to the banks to waive off the loan interest, and they would say, waive off the loan for another 3 to 6 months. You don't need to pay interest, number one, for probably a year or two, and you don't need to repay anything over the next 3 to 6 months because we are going through a tough time, right? So banks got that instruction and they carried forward. They also took a bit of it. A bit of relief was given by the government. What else? People who have lost jobs, they were given wages. For example, in Australia, there was something called job keeper allowance. That means a business would be given money so that they can, for example, I employ 20 people, and per month I spend $20,000. Let's say small money. Let's say $50,000 per month to give salary to all those 20 people. Now I don't have money because if it's lockdown, I'm running that cafe, nobody's coming. Government would pay that $50,000, 20, whatever I said number, $20,000, $50,000 to me, so that I can give the salary of these guys. It's called job keeper allowance. Similarly, there's a job seeker allowance. That means if I am looking for a job and I'm not finding, and it is because of this pandemic, I will be getting money enough to live from the government. So this is the way government should do it. And in addition, what government could do is put money in projects that can employ people. Okay, for example, it could be, we have seen, we thought IT is a luxury, IT is going to get cut off very soon. But what happened is government started putting money into IT projects. They would say that some of the projects run by home ministry, treasury, etc. They started granting huge money so that they know that will feed into the IT industry, right? And there is also need. Why? Because suppose you are working from home, how will you enable that? By migrating people to the cloud infrastructure. That means investment on cloud infrastructure. If you have to reach out these benefits to the citizens, you have to upgrade your systems. What do? You do IT projects. If you have to counter a threat from an enemy nation, you upgrade your defense network projects. So you spend like that. So all these ways government will do it. And I understand that being in India, you may feel that yes, in US or UK, Australia, Canada, there is so much of relief India is doing, but probably because of the population, it is not as much affordable, as much possible. Yes, that is true. But that's the general move that people are doing, right? Okay. Next, the other thing that's happening, and let me look at that. Okay, is innovation. Remember what I was talking about? There are three inputs. One, capital or the money that you put in. Second is labor, and both got hit. So labor gets hit because government says, and it's important, okay, not to undermine the government, it's important, says stay inside. So the labor input is less. We just talked about the capital input, that if government can spend more, than the capital input comes in. And what was the third one is productivity. So to increase productivity, the only way is innovation. Only way is innovation. Now, innovation is usually a product of happy times. Why? Because happy times is when you don't think about fixing broken things. What you do is you challenge status quo. You say that, okay, just because something is working, that need not stay that way. I can make it better. That's what innovation is. Okay. But when it is the question of your survival, when you have your back to the wall, right? When your next paycheck, say, is uncertain, you don't know whether you will get your next paycheck, and your kids are waiting at the dining table for you to bring bread to home, right? That time desperation kicks in, and from desperation also you get innovation. So this innovation is not to improve what is already there. This innovation is for human adaptation, okay, to survive. And a number of such examples have kicked in during this COVID times. One, we have talked about the work from home. We have talked about online learning. We have talked about no, we have not talked about the fact that drones have been excessively used now. The drone concept was very light, right, for photography, this and that. But now in COVID, we have started using drone. Not we, I'm talking about especially US and all. They have started using drones for delivering vaccines, for delivering food, for delivering even packages in terms of shopping packages. So mass use of those. I'll give you one example that all of you may relate to. You've heard about this chain called Saravana Bhavan, very famous in Tamil Nadu. Okay, Saravana Bhavan is so famous, they also have chains globally, right? So in Australia, they have a chain, like they have a few restaurants. Now, here they have introduced something that they need not do it, but it was a nice thing to do. They've introduced a robot. Okay, and what the robot does is, you have mapped probably your tables and other things. You order online, sitting in the table, they will not give you even a menu card. You will sit on the table, you will scan a QR code that will give you the online order, and with that like online menu, you will order online, and then a robot comes rolling out with a tray directly to your table, because you have already instructed where the table is. it comes and it presents the table, and there's an audio visual whatever a screen which says this is your menu, please take it. Okay, so practically no human interface. Okay, was it necessary? Yeah, not that much is necessary. We can still do with some waiters, but everybody is excited about it. So these are innovations that you try to do when you try to meet the regulatory needs of not touching, not facing people, but you spend a bit and you achieve greater results. One other thing, so whatever we were talking about, what you can appreciate now is the economy or the world will not remain the same no matter how many vaccinations come and go, everybody gets vaccinated over and over again. The world has changed for good. Let's accept that. Okay, it won't be the same world anymore, how we know. So the way we live has changed, and so will be the economy. There's a new term which has come in. It's called 90% economy. Please remember, as commerce students, 90% economy. That means only 90% of your economy will recover or stay the way it is. The 10% will go away. They will not be. But here is where innovation comes in. The 10% will get replaced by newer types of industries, like these online delivery, drones, and these kind of offerings. Okay, and there's another term called acceleration. Like acceleration, you call it acceleration. What is acceleration? Like when your technical advancement accelerates beyond usual. Okay, and people are saying that because of all this innovation that we are talking about, the entire era has been taken ahead by 5 years, at least by 5 years. That means if economy and the world was going the way it was, we wouldn't have seen these things happening till the next 5 years. But COVID has actually pushed us forward by 5 years in terms of innovation. And the last time we saw some innovations like that was in after World War II, where actually after World War II we got the modern computer, where it was used to crack codes of deciphers, or the codes that would be exchanged by military. How you can crack it? That's how computers were used. Rockets were used. Aeroplanes like jet engines came through. Those things got invented after another sort of, I would say, crisis time, which was World War II. But then after that, the maximum number of innovations that have come has been during this situation. So all is not bad. Okay, all is not bad. The people have understood that life must go on, and governments appreciate that. Governments are pouring in money. $4 trillion, would you believe, $4 trillion of new currency have been introduced by US, Europe, I mean, in terms of the US dollars, euros, pounds, and by Japan, like yen. So all that is happening. People are keeping the interest low so that you can spend more and you can recover the economy. But what is important is we should stay positive when things are fine. We should not close our doors and behave normally. And that's the only way we can recover the economy together. And that is all I would like to say. I hope the session made sense and you all had something to take away.
Yeah, sure, sir. So now, is it open for the questions, sir?
It is open for the questions. Yes, please.
Okay. Please, audience, anybody has a questions, please ask here. There are a few questions in the chat box. I will read later. If you have a questions now, you.
Somebody wants to ask question directly, then we have to come on video.
Okay.
Huh?
Udayan, sir. Okay,
Yeah.
now I read few questions in the chat box. Give time to others for preparations. So there is one question by Shobha. who is asking, no single venture left affected by COVID. Can I know how diversification work?
No single venture
Left
is
affected by COVID.
left affected by COVID. Can I know how diversify? So you mean that
Works.
no matter how much I diversify, everybody has got impacted by COVID. So I am bound to be impacted. You are absolutely right. There is no two thoughts about it. But if you see, it all doesn't touch everything at once. Okay. So imagine there was a time when the only thing that was hurt was China, the only country. Okay. The example that I gave, Australia had placed almost all its eggs in one basket, which was China. So bulk of its imports was China, and we got badly hit. The moment we started spreading it out, yes, we would be hit, but not at the same time. There would be, maybe India was in a better position. India would have given us the things that we needed to carry on our life as usual. That's what is meant. That it's important.
Okay.
At the same time, yeah.
Um,
Go ahead. Subhash Patil is raising their hand.
no, sir. So there is another question
Yes.
by Dr. Priya. Sir, what is your opinion regarding introduction of technology in India, where we find a vast majority of unorganized sector?
Look, unorganized sector is different from not able to adapt to technology. Okay. In fact, technology could be that thread that brings unorganized sector into the organized world. What I mean is, when you say unorganized sector, I'll give you an example, right? I work for Accenture. It's a part of organized sector. Okay. TCS, Infosys, all organized sectors. Why? There is simple. It accounts for whatever we work and the money that the company earns. It is transparent. The government knows about it. We pay taxes, etc. Now imagine if I was in my own field, if I was freelance. Okay. So I go and I get a ping. Okay, can you develop a website? Something like that. That's unorganized. The same version of what I'm talking about is, for example, a daily wage earner who would till land versus someone who is working as part of Larsen and Toubro and going with a bobcat and doing the same thing. Okay, so if you enable these people who are not part of the organized sector with technology, you get visibility of their work. They get connected to the best practices. Okay. However, I think what you are trying to ask is something different. What you are trying to ask is
Okay, sir.
people who are less educated or cannot really, they're not literates, they cannot adapt to technology. There are ways again. Remember, there was a time when technology needed you to type or sign, or there's another type of password. Now all technology needs is to put your thumbprint, right? So with the right focus, devices, technology can be made intuitive enough so that people without formal education can handle it. I think that's what exactly you are trying to ask me.
Yeah. Sir, there's a next question by Sushma Rao K. Sir, what will be the situation of new startups introduced during the time of COVID pandemic? Does the venture capital may help to revive?
Very good question. Let me tell you, a lot of startups started during pandemic. A lot of them. Okay, I'm missing the numbers. Sorry for that. But look up net, you will find. The only problem, however, is the ability of startups to carry on if the venture capitalists or people who actually invest in those startups shy away from there. That's why the attitude of positivity is required. Remember how the world is changing after COVID. There's a distribution of wealth. Okay, bigger organizations with bigger structures will see a loss of revenue in some way or the other. But these smaller ones now with a connected world will earn much more. So there's a lot of prospect for startups and businessmen or venture capitalists. They're pretty smart. They know um, what will yield them money. So I think it's a good future. I'll give you an example. Udaan is one of the e-commerce platforms that was floated during the pandemic or just before the pandemic or something like that. It's doing pretty well. It has one of my friends, my childhood friend in there. So I know that. Yeah. What else?
Sir, there is another question by.
How are you getting those questions? I am not able to see them. Otherwise, I could have read them. But yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, now I read, sir.
Yeah.
COVID-19 is better managed in Australia compared to India. And what are the lessons that we could learn?
Okay, that's okay. I'll tell you this. You say better or worse based on um, if it is the same problem that you are solving, right? If I say my child's work, studying in an Australian school is better than your child work here, so studying in an Indian school is completely baseless, because the standards of evaluation, the kind of studies, everything is different, right? Similarly, these are very two different countries. Now, first, we don't have the population problem. I'm sorry for calling it a problem. It is a problem. Okay, we have a lot of people to take care of, and when I say we, this time I mean India, right? Here, the population density is not much. If we had this dense a population, and again, this time when I say we, I mean Australia, then we wouldn't be able to give job keeper, job seeker, these kind of allowances. Simply, we wouldn't have that much money to give. So we are here. Australia, I would say, is blessed to have it's a new world, right? Australia has a history of not more than 300 years. Okay, and India has been just ruled for 300 years by British. So imagine that. So we would have not done as much this thing. The second thing is reaching out, right? Reaching out. Remember here, if you give a communication on a website, even a website, I forget about, you don't even have to use your television or the same website. Everybody, practically it will reach 80 to 90% of the people. There, you have to keep on, pushing that message through various means, because people are not that equipped. People are not literate. So your literacy, your population density, your population itself, and the money that you have. However, the things that should have or could be taken as a lesson is one, when Australia came to know that the virus is entering the country, and obviously before that China has burned, so people knew what is happening, we closed our doors and we swallowed the hard pill that yes, let the economy suffer for a while, but our people will live. I think India did the same. If you remember, India did the same. The problem is people just wouldn't listen. Okay, there was a sector, the sector means there was a group of people who wouldn't listen, and still the case is that today. But that was the first thing which we didn't struggle with, but India struggled with. But the second thing is we observed, both government and people observed that we have just got out of that crisis. Let's maintain the decorum. Let's not break things. And I think in India, both government and people forgot that lesson. They both violated. They both took it. And even when things were going very, very, very south, yeah, the right controls, the right hard this thing, so that steps were not taken. So it doesn't need a lesson from Australia. I think people always knew what is the right thing to do. You don't need to look outward, just look inward, and I'm talking about the government.
Yeah. Thank you, sir, for your thoughtful words and whatever you have researched. I know in Australia what is happening there, and we have seen everything through the media. And moreover, India, the country where we are living, it's very difficult, but it managed very much. But unexpected happened in India and everywhere in the world. So thank you for your insightful words, sir. So now, any questions are there? Sir, there is another one. I think this is the last one.
This is too much.
In this pandemic situation, the people unaware of technology or worsen their struggle to live. What is remedy for them?
People are unaware of technology are worse their struggle to live. What is remedy for them?
Right.
In this pandemic situation, okay, I'm trying to understand what exactly. In this pandemic situation, the people unaware of technology, okay, or to whom you cannot reach out to technology, are basically struggling. Okay, what is the remedy for them? You are obviously talking about Indian context and people who are not aware of technology. I feel urban wise people know, right? For example, you've got apps on the phone to block your what do you call COVID vaccination appointment, and so I think it has reached out to most people. But who are, I don't know. The government has to think about it. Honestly, I don't have an answer, and I have not seen that deep of rural India or poverty in India to be able to say. But we don't have an option just to rely on technology. Technical inclusion into technology is a gradual process. It does not happen overnight, and especially when your population greatly is not literate. Okay, so what has to happen is you have to use those human channels. Okay, there could be leaflets for people who are not using technology but can read. There are people who can't even read right. You have to use human elements. But think about this: polio is out of our country. Tuberculosis is practically very good. I mean, we have done good with BCG vaccinations, polio vaccination. How did we do that? Yes, it was not done overnight, but it was done. So human channel works. In India, it is about reaching out to people, and people only can reach out to people. So human channel works, and that's the only way at the moment. Next one, rich and the poor gap is increasing. Big issue. It can be managed. Can be managed. It can be managed, to be honest. Yes. See, the rich would always want to become richer. Okay. Or let's call it the right English. Rich would like to become wealthy. Poor becomes a destitute. Really, I mean, they lose their bread. But what we are saying here is the way industry operates, the way different forms of income, forms of operations come in. Sometimes they play a great equalizer or a leveler. Okay, they bring up people. You know, when I'm forgetting this thing. Elon Musk had that great dream of creating this algorithm where anybody can invest in the market, and without the knowledge of it itself, he can earn enough, and therefore it will play a great leveler. So we do not have one panacea to actually equalize this entire thing. It will happen over decades. It will not completely go away. Okay, it's not a problem of India. It is problem across. Okay, but a better country is where this gap is lesser. Okay, so the only way, you can't bring the rich down, but you can elevate the poor, and the only way to do that is when consciously there is inclusion of the poor, and there is no discrimination of the poor. So one is a social aspect, the other is the aspect where inclusion and you are sending out benefits to the poor. You are making them literate so that they can earn their own bread later, rather than just keeping on feeding them. So it's a big exercise, to be honest, very, very big exercise. It takes generations to level this or to make it a little better. Why is our economy developing economy when our economy that's a good one. Okay, there are many factors, mate, which determines whether one is a developing economy versus a developed economy. I don't have everything at the top of my mind, but one of the things is how different people are, or rather this gap. Okay, I'll give you an example. Okay, here, if I am living, let's say I'm a senior manager, I think I'm whatever, I'm earning well, I have a home, I have a car, my next door could be just a truck driver. I am saying just from a very Indian mindset, okay? And he may have a bigger home and a bigger car, and they actually have. The person who would come to do gardening in my home drives probably a BMW, where I would be driving maybe something lesser than that, okay? That means there is no what is it called, the dignity of labor is there. That means you have heard that word, right? Dignity of labor. So it's important that you respect all the kinds of work that you do, okay? Just because there is a white collar, there should not be any collar. What does it mean, white collar, blue collar?
Yeah.
We are all contributing to the economy. The moment I graduate and I say I have to become a doctor or an engineer to earn the good job and to get a good girl to marry, that means my society has already defined it. And you know where it spawns from? I'm very sorry to say. So it spawns from our caste system. The caste system was not meant to be that level. It was supposed to be one beside another, okay? There are 4 teams which would look at 4 aspects of the society: Brahmins for education, Kshatriyas for policing, military aspects, Vaishyas for business, Shudras for all sorts of other work like service work, okay? But what happened? Instead of these 4, it became so one after another. One got oppressed, and gradually people wanted to move to the higher form. So it spawned with the caste system, but then it became labor. The kind of stuff that you do. Recently, I met someone, a student who had come here, and he's earning very well, okay, but he wants to come into IT job. And I said, why? And you know what he does? He paints homes. He earns much more, but he says, you know what? It's a white collar. Doesn't matter. So in trucks, in developing countries, there is no such thing that you are doing. You are driving a truck. That means you are a lesser model. No, you are not. You are equally important, because if I don't give you importance, you will not be true to your work. You will cut corners on your work, and overall, you know what will impact? Your economy. Your overall society will get impacted if one of those people are not working. Okay. I hope that works. It went into a little bit of a philosophical tangent, but I think that's the answer. Yeah, I'm pretty
Yeah. Thank you,
confident about
sir. Thank you very much, sir, for fulfilling all the doubts.
It's just my perception. There's no facts. It's just what I feel is what I gave as a clarifications.
Yeah, thank you for your in-depth knowledge of economy, and also you have quoted about India and then whatever the Vedas and the Upanishads said. Okay, now I like to request Ms. Sumana Rajendra, madam from Purnapuna College, Udupi. She's my senior English lecturer. Madam, please give vote of thanks to this session.
Yeah, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Actually, I'm very happy to express my words of gratitude, especially to a renowned person all the way from Melbourne, Australia, who is very busy, and it's right up to probably 12 o'clock there. He was very gracious enough to accept our invitation and share his great inputs. In fact, he gave us a kaleidoscopic view of the impact of the pandemic. He took us around. He gave us the latest updates. He took us around. It was rather a world tour. We couldn't have asked for better. Thank you very much, Mr. Udayan Ghan Chaudhary. Thank you so much for sparing your valuable time. Next, I take the opportunity to thank the principal of Manjunath Pai Memorial Government College for creating this innovative series of international webinar. When Yogesh approached me, I was rather surprised. He said, we are having a whole week of these international webinar talks. I was very happy. And he asked for a collaboration from our college, from our department. I was very happy. I instantly agreed. Thanks to the principal, our principal, readily agreed to this idea for this collaboration. Sir, Raghavendra sir, our beloved principal, and thank you, Yogesh, for this idea, for bringing together your department and our department, your college and our college. I thank all the participants. I thank everybody who played a very important role in this international webinar, which lasted for around 1.5 hours. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am. So thank you everyone. So now I put the feedback form in the Google chat. So all the participants, please stay in the line. So thank you, Udayan sir. Thank you, Sumana madam, and thank you all the principals of government colleges of Bangalore region. Thank you very much for this opportunity to give us. Thank you everyone. And I also thank my principal Shivarma Ajri sir. Still he is in the college with us to support us. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Udayan sir. Thank you, Kiran sir. Everyone. So shall you?
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you, sir. ಹೌದು ಅಬ್ಬಾ ಹೌದು ತುಂಬಾ ಸರ್ ಹೌದು ಅಲ್ಲ ಸರ್ ನನ್ನ ಕಾಂಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ ಹಾಕ್ದೆ ಓ ಅದು ನಾನು ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹಾಕಿದ್ದೀನಿ ಸರ್ ಬಂದಿದೆ ಓ ಇದು ಯಾರಿಗೋ ಬೇಲಿ ಹೋಯ್ತು ಮಾರ್ರೆ ಹಲೋ ಹಾ